Hey guys, today we're going to talk about how to annotate text, book, poem, or whatever you've got. This video is featuring me, Mr. Kreher.
And me, Mr. Church.
There we go. We'll figure it out. All right. First off, I don't know. Annotation doesn't really come up too often, but let's just make sure we understand what it means to annotate. So you can see kind of within there notation, and if we kind of shorten it a little bit more, you'll know the word note. And that kind of sums it up right there, that what we're doing is we're making notes here for the text. And we're going to see if this marker works, so bear with us. We've never actually used one before. And so a nice little simple definition would be to add notes to a text, giving an explanation or a comment. So what you're going to do is you're actually going to be reading something, and then when you finish, you're going to add your own commentary or explanation to it. Okay? So here's kind of an example of what annotation might look like. You'll notice that sometimes you can use a lot of different colors, so hopefully your notes are easy to read. Because sometimes if you use the same color, it gets a little clustered. And at first it looks intimidating because there's a lot of stuff here, but once you know kind of the basics of it, it's not so bad, right? Okay, so I think Mr. Church actually suggested this one too, and I thought it was kind of good. It will slow down your reading, but ultimately save you time. Mr. Church, how will this save you time?
Well, instead of just trying to get through the storyline and find the major plot points, you actually have to stop and think about what's happening in the story and important elements like the plot, the setting, the conflict, and how all those elements are working together. So it will slow down your reading because you're taking time to think about what you're reading. But it will save you time because instead of just breezing through the text and the teacher asking you kind of an in-depth question, you don't have to fly back through the book and look for, and go, okay, what happened? What happened? Where was that? You will actually have the annotations completed already, and that'll save you time because it's easier just to go flip through your book and find those annotations for the important information.
Yeah. And then also kind of going along with that, it provides an immediate self-check for understanding. So I think we've all kind of had that moment where you've read a page of something, and you make it to the bottom of the page, and then you kind of freak out, and you're like, I have no idea what I just read. My eyes glazed over all the words, but I didn't actually read them. And so when you annotate, it forces you to engage with the text and make sure that you do understand something. And if you don't, you can kind of question the text by putting question marks next to the side that you can ask later on during class. So by writing these question marks or just kind of your commentary with the book, you're having a conversation with the text as you go along. And then finally, I think Mr. Church said this too, that idea of, like when you show up in class, if you have your book or poem or whatever annotated, it's much easier to review that later on after you've read it, and then it's easier to analyze something when you actually have some notes already on there, kind of a nice little jumping ground.
Yeah, so the kind of questions for immediate self-check or understanding, even if it's just a word that you haven't come across, it could be a vocabulary word, it could be something you just can't figure out in that context, or it could be a bigger question that relates to something that happened earlier in the book that plot-wise just you don't understand what's going on or why a certain character is important. So it's very important to ask those questions at the time instead of trying to go back and think about, okay, what did I miss? Where was that? And have to almost reread everything that you just read. So.
And we want to do the least amount of work efficiently. That's not being lazy, that's just being smart. Okay? You might want to write this down if you're taking notes to go along with this. Things that you might want to annotate. There are tons of guides out there. If you just Google annotation guides or ways to annotate, you'll find tons of stuff. Hopefully, if you're coming here from Parkway North or wherever, your teacher might have already handed out kind of a guideline because there's multiple systems and everyone kind of uses their own system. But I think this is kind of the basics of what you usually want to annotate. So words or sections or just like passages you don't understand, this is really helpful, especially in poetry, where if there's an ambiguous line, you can kind of underline it or put a question mark next to it so you can come back to it later in class. Important characters or quotes and scenes, like when you feel like the author is really trying to tell you something in that passage. Usually if you see any of these literary devices, irony, tone, setting, symbols, metaphors, And, you know, that's not even an exhaustive list. You might want to put a star next to that, especially a really good metaphor. And a really irony, too, because usually that's the author trying to tell us something about the message they want to get across.
So an example of that is like in To Kill a Mockingbird, the first couple chapters are talking about the history of the town and the history of the Finch clan. And they talk about, I guess it's Scout's like great-grandfather, some of my uncles, and these people who have died. Yeah. And you have to determine whether those people, are they important, or is it just kind of some exposition, some mentioning of some background? Are these characters going to come back up? Have they been mentioned 3 or 4 times? Like Boo Radley's constantly mentioned early in the book. So he's going to come back around. So that's a character you may want to note. But you kind of start determining who's important, who's not. And then if somebody has a very significant idea, hence go back to Kill a Mockingbird, they talk about To Kill a Mockingbird, the book is called that, you might want to say, oh, they're talking about a mockingbird here. I need to note that. That's important. That's going to come up. So,
yeah, definitely. That idea of repetition, where if the symbol in the title comes up in the book, probably you know that's going to be important. The third one's kind of related to the first one as well. Just writing questions when you're confused. Instead of just writing a big question mark, you can also write down why you're confused. I like this one too, this note sections you respond to emotionally. If the passage makes you angry, like you don't like the ending, or you feel sad when something happens to a character, note those sections and bring those up during conversations, because the author wants you to respond emotionally, besides just being bored. Okay? And then finally...
yeah, don't mark the board.
Yeah, don't mark the board. Yeah, don't mark it. Yeah, your whole book might be marked up if you're really cynical. And then finally, you know, you've heard this one before. Any connections you can make to yourself, world, or other text. I think they kind of go from least important to most important. Self, yeah, okay, whatever. World, okay. Text are pretty good. Just make sure it's not Hunger Games like every time you make a connection. All right, so what we're going to do next is let's actually practice with a short story. So we've got a little bit of flash fiction here over the story called Wallet by Alan Woodman. What you should probably do at this point is, this is the whole story right here. So I suggest, I don't think you can see the bottom part of it. Okay, give us some time. We might have to come back to this. Wait, is there like 2 slides? No.
Yeah, make it full screen.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So that's the whole
story. There we go.
That's the whole story.
Okay, so look at this part, pause the video, read the story, and then we're going to come back and try and annotate this story. All right? All right, so hopefully you've looked that story over. Now let's go ahead and just start and kind of talk our way through the story. And Mr. Church is going to mark up anything he sees important, or, you know, if I catch something, we'll have him mark it up and kind of make our way through this story. So first thing I guess that kind of pops out to me would maybe be the title of it, just Wallet. I think like that kind of tells us a nice little short title. Maybe the story will be short and sweet as well. We know it's not really long, so it's probably going to be quick and to the point.
So I'm going to ask a story about this. Why is a wallet important? Why is that a title?
Yeah. Is the wallet a metaphor for something bigger? Just already getting engaged in questioning the text. Why wallet? Maybe when we make it to the end, we'll see why. Tired of losing his wallet to pickpockets, my father, at 70, makes a phony one. Okay, there's a lot going on in that sentence. We already know that this story is told by a son, but it seems to be about his father who has his wallet pickpocketed. And already really helpful is we have the age of the father here, and we know that he is 70 years old. Okay, so I guess what we can guess the narrator's about 40 years old, 40, 50 or something like that.
Probably, yeah. And you know, we have the age of the, right here we have the age of the character is 70, so we can assume it's, like you said, my father, so our narrator is going to be, you know, a character, possibly a character in it as well. So we have our characters right away from the first line of the story.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also have a point of view. You can tell a point of view to this.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Because of the pronouns being used.
Yeah, that my right there is really helpful too.
Yeah.
And even still on the first sentence, this idea of the father is tired of losing his wallet, so he makes a phony one. And you, if I was going to think like, if I was tired of losing my wallet to pickpocketers, maybe I would think of ways that I could prevent myself from getting pickpocketed, or maybe reporting to the authorities where it happens. But it would never occur to me to make a fake wallet. So that's kind of an interesting choice as well.
So we call this diction. This is the word choice by the author.
Oh, good point.
And he's creating a phony one. So this brings up, even if you go back over to the beginning, tired of losing his wallet, we have the conflict of the story also.
Yeah, and it's really helpful too with these short stories that we know everything from the very beginning. And look, we've only annotated the first sentence here, and we've got a lot going on here. We'll kind of keep rolling along too, but you can see that this process takes a bit. He stuffs the phony wallet with expired food coupons and losing Florida lottery tickets and a fortune cookie that reads, "Life is the same old story told over and over." And I think what pops out to me really fast is that fortune cookie. And it seems weird to actually add that in there. So my first thing would be to put a little question mark next to that, and then just kind of ask, well, why doesn't it just say he stuffed his wallet full of food coupons, lottery tickets, and a fortune cookie? Like, why in the world would you put the fortune cookie in there? There must be something important about that. Life is the same old story told over and over. Okay, so maybe when we finish, we can go back, look at our annotations, and try and answer that. Okay, so if we pose questions in annotation, it's very helpful if we at least make a prediction or try and guess. Anything else pop out to you, Mr. Church?
No, yeah, just that line of how it's at the end of the paragraph, so it kind of has some significance to it. It just kind of stands out. It's a quote, so it's going to have some kind of importance to it, maybe bigger meaning towards theme, or like you said, maybe metaphor for the whole story, something like that. So it's definitely something you want to come back to.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, Mr. Church. How do you fit a fortune cookie into a wallet? That's really impressive. Like, those things are not tiny, right? Yeah. Like a stick of gum, I can totally do a stick of gum, but how fat is this man's wallet? Anyway, so second paragraph. In a full-length mirror, he tries the wallet in the back of his pants. It hangs out fat with desire. All oyster, he says to me, no pearl.
Okay, so talk about emotion. This line makes me laugh.
Yeah, I couldn't even make it through without laughing at that line. That's such a great line. And Mr. Church, can you explain, what does that mean, all oyster and no pearl?
So it's like he knows that, going back to the beginning, the conflict, that he's tired of losing his wallet, that he's making a phony one. So he can kind of start getting an idea of what's going to happen here, that he's setting something up, he's creating a phony wallet, so if it gets stolen, nothing of value is in there, right? Losing Florida lottery tickets, fortune cookie, the expired food stamps, and losing, the fortune cookie that has some odd meaning to it. So anybody that takes his wallet is going to go, what is this junk? So he jokes about all oyster, no pearl. So when you look inside oysters, of course, you're looking for that pearl. And he sets it up so there's nothing but a shell there. There's nothing of importance to it.
Yeah, and I also like in this section too. We have the metaphor. We have one nice metaphor in here that what Mr. Church just explained: the oyster, no pearl. And then also we have this line of personification in the second line. It hangs out fat with desire. Well, I've never seen a wallet desire something, but I like that line about just that idea of like it's almost the greed that it represents there. That idea of like you see a fat wallet, you know there's got to be something good in there. Now, sadly, we're basically out of time here. So I think you don't have to see the full effect of us going through a whole story, but you can already see, depending on how fast or slow you want to go, we could have done this story and only marked up maybe 3 important passages. But you can see if you take it slowly, authors deliberately put everything into their story, and so you can find something almost meaningful in every single sentence, kind of like we did here. But we have 10 seconds left, so this is Mr. Kreher signing off.
And Mr. Church.
And hopefully that was helpful. Maybe we'll make another video.